of you know who this is. Who is it? Kay Yao. Kay Yao, yeah, NC. North Carolina State women's basketball coach for 34 seasons, 8 times National Coach of the Year. She took 2 women's basketball teams to Olympic gold. That's how some of us who aren't in this area of the country may have heard her. And she got breast cancer. She died just a few years ago at the age of 66. But I heard her being interviewed on one of the Good Morning America type shows, and she said something very powerful, which I'd like to share with you. She said, when life kicks you, let it kick you forward. Has Parkinson's been kicking you? Whether you're the care partner or the person with it? It's either a nuisance, right, or it's a life changer. So we want these kicks because we can't do anything about the fact that we have Parkinson's. That's a given in our family and that we're dealing with this. But we want that kick to be forward. And that's what I'd like to explore with you today is the positivity and how you get through a difficult experience like this. As was mentioned, my husband Charles, there's a picture of Charles, developed an atypical Parkinsonian disease. It was called cortical basal degeneration. It's a sister disease to PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy. Anyone that wants to talk to me about it after, please feel free. Has many Parkinson's symptoms. So he looks a lot like a Parkinson's, but he doesn't respond well to the medicines, and it is a little bit of a different disease. But we went through this over 5 years with Charles. So as you can see, it's a much quicker progression than regular Parkinson's disease. But we were determined to not let the disease slow Charles down. He was only 45 with his first symptom. He died at the age of 50. We wanted to give him the best rest of life as it was possible to give him. We kept him going in every way we possibly could. And that's this concept of letting it kick us forward. And there were a lot of positives in this that I'll share with you today. So thinking of positivity, we can take any situation, a frustration that we have or something big like Parkinson's, and look at it from a positive point of view or a negative point of view. Let's say you go out to your car and you're getting ready to go home today, and as you're driving home, the brake light comes on. All right, now that can be a negative, right? We can say, oh my goodness, that means I got to take it to the shop. I don't have time to do that. It's going to be expensive. I don't really like my mechanic. You know, what else is he going to tell me I have to do? It's Saturday. They're not, open. You got the idea? But we can also think about it from a positive point of view. What might that be? We're glad that the light came on, right? We would hate to have a situation where our brakes didn't work, wouldn't we? So it has a positive aspect to it as well, and we're just thankful that our brakes didn't go, that we had this warning. So that's what I want you to think about as you go through your ups and downs day to day, is think about we have a choice. We can look at it negatively, we can look at it positively. Our mindset matters. What we think about really makes a difference. These are Michelangelo's unfinished sculptures. He didn't just see the marble, he saw those people. So with Parkinson's, again, you can't change the fact that this is in your life. We can change what we can see going through it. Let's bring out those wonderful Michelangelo sculptures out of what we've got inside us. There are a lot of studies on mindset, tons of them over the last 20, 30 years. So please know there's a lot of science by psychological researchers, PhD folks. I'm just going to share one with you as an example of how important your mindset is. This is a study that was done by Ellen Langer of Harvard and her colleagues. Really fascinating study. This was done in the 70s. She took 75-year-old men, and she did a whole battery of tests with them: flexibility, strength, mental tests, physiological tests. And then she took them away for a 1-week retreat. And during that retreat, she had clothes for them that would have been 20 years earlier. And they were to pretend that they were 55 years old. Remember, they're 75, they're retired, were there to pretend they were 55 years old, and they were to talk about their jobs. They were to talk about President Eisenhower. There were Saturday Evening Post and Life magazines on the tables. And they went through a week of this retreat. She said it was fascinating because they started to talk about their jobs as if they were still in their jobs. All right, they finish the week. They go back to the laboratory and get all the tests again. Guess what happens? They get better. They get better on every single test. Their flexibility, their strength, their mental memory, even their vision improves. That's the power of our mindset. I want you to leave today being committed to go home with a positive mindset. Yes, is Parkinson's not fun? You got it. Is it a pain in the neck? Yep. But we're going to go out of here positive that we're going to make the best of every day that we have. A little bit more on the science. Barbara Fredrickson is one of the researchers in the positivity field, a research psychologist. She found that there's a tipping point in the number of positives and negatives that we have in our life. And she found that we need 3 positives for every negative. Have you seen that? All you need is someone to say one bad thing at you, right? And it pulls you down. One bad thing happens, the brake lights come on, or you have an accident, pulls you down. The positives don't stick. Here's the way another person has described it. Positives are like Teflon. They just slide right off. Negatives, though, are like Velcro. The negatives stick. So we need 3 positives to be able to balance the negatives. You're already dealing with a pretty heavy negative. Just dealing with Parkinson's, that's a heavy negative. So how do we balance that? We might need to proactively look, find, and make up some of the positives. And I'm going to share with you ways to do that after I talk about the science today. I want to share this study, too, by Sonia Limbersky and her colleagues, another research psychologist. She looked at all the studies that they've been doing out there on happiness, what makes people happy. And when she pulled all the studies together, she found that only 10% of people's happiness was due to the external circumstances around them. 10% would be due to your Parkinson's. 10% would be due to a death in the family. 10% would be due to financial issues or, a flood, whatever. Does that seem low? It does, doesn't it? But that's what she found. So where's the other 90%? She found that 50% is what you inherit from your parents. It's who you are. So you are either, by nature, a little more pessimistic or more optimistic. You can't change that 50%. That's who you are. You need to embrace it. Know that everybody has value. The pessimists seem to be a little more critical and help us see what will work and what won't. The optimists can be a little bit more rosy. So we need everybody, but that's who you are. 50% is who you are. But I still have 40% more, right? And that is what she found is our attitude. That's where our mindset comes into play. 40%, that's a pretty good bit that we can monitor and change and let these things kick us forward that can bring us positivity. So 40% is the number I want you to walk out with. I want you to know you've got 40% control of your attitude to how you deal with the frustrations of this disease. Here's how the brain works to make that happen. We all have amygdalas. They're deep in our brain. They are very much like the same that reptiles have and all other animals. These amygdalas, if you haven't heard the word amygdala, I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight. You get a threat, the amygdala responds, you either run or you fight, whatever you decide to respond to that threat. And it's immediate. It's what has kept our species and other species alive because we have this amygdala. Just like the squirrel that I almost hit driving the other day. That amygdala got him to turn around and get out of the way. Here's the thing. We also, though, we don't have to just be responding to the amygdala, just responding to every threat and, reacting emotionally. we have this prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that allows us to think. It allows us to become more rational. It allows us to get a better response to the threats and the frustrations that come in every day. So what you're going to use to get more positive, or to bring that positivity in when you're down, is your 40% and this prefrontal cortex. And what's really neat, neuroscience now has shown that this prefrontal cortex can grow. It can mature. It's not fixed. So every single person in here can walk out being a little bit more positive. You've got that capability. Again, I want to be clear. There's the one end, which is Bobby Knight, Indiana University basketball coach. Those of you that know of him, did he lose his job or not? He did lose his job. He was known for yelling at his teammates, yelling at the referees, just nasty kind of guy. He wrote the book, The Power of Negative Thinking, this year. I don't know how he had the gall to do it because he lost his job. It doesn't make sense to me. So we want to, we're not talking about that extreme, and I'm not talking about also the extreme of Pollyanna. Pollyanna is the power of wishful thinking. We want to just wish it all to be good. I don't think that works either. What I think is the key is this middle ground of being a realistic optimist. We're realistic that we know we got Parkinsons. We're realistic that we know there are frustrations in our day, and they're real. But we're optimistic that we're going to make the best of everything the best we can. We're optimistic that we don't have to let this slow us down and ruin our life. We can make a really wonderful life even with Parkinson's. So that's what we're after today. I love this quote by Robert Brault. An optimist is a person who recognizes that a step backward after a step forward is not a disaster. It's a cha-cha. So join the cha-cha of life with me and be optimistic. All right, so to improve our optimism and our positivity, we're going to do things to increase optimism and positivity, but we're going to also do things to decrease the negativity. Because if we can get rid of the negativity, that will have the role of bringing us into more positivity. Martin Seligman is the psychologist who was the president of the American Psychological Association when he coined this term positive psychology. And over the years, he's been thinking about what it is. And he has come up with this term PERMA. And PERMA is all of these different components. And I'm going to go through each one today to give you an idea of how you can apply positivity to your life, some good little tools that you can use. So let's get started starting with the top one, positive emotions. How many of you want some of these emotions? Yeah. All right, we want them. Everybody wants these. They're good. We're not going to do it now, but I want to point out, if you could, by the way, get your handout out of your folder. The handout looks like this. And then you have a purple, kind of pinky purple sheet that says the affect balance scale. Get that out also. All right. Everybody got those? And get a pen or pencil out if you have one. We're not going to take the time right now to do the affect balance scale because I don't have enough time to really play that one out with you. But I want you to take it home or maybe do it during lunch. Fill out your affect balance scale, and you're looking for the highest positive number you can get, up to a +5. And I can help you score it if you get confused later. This is a good little tool you can use periodically. Test it out different times in your life. See if you've got that positive affect. A +5 is what you're looking for. If you do that and you come up with a minus number, it means you've got some opportunity to bring in more positive. And even if you're at a 1, you've got opportunity to bring in more positivity. So that's a little scoring device for you to use later. What I want to share with you, though, is a tip on, this is so simple. There's a really easy tip to bring in more positivity in your life. And it was studied by a guy named Edmunson. And Edmunson found that if we do this, we can increase our positivity by 25%. That's pretty good, right? And that it can last at least 6 months, because that's when they post-tested it and people were still having a positive effect from it. And it's very easy. What you do is at the end of the day, you ask yourself, what went well today? That's all you do. But you got to dig deep and come up with 3 things. So on a really bad day, you're digging deep. It might be that you just enjoyed your bowl of ice cream, but you want to dig deep. So I do want to take a moment right now for you guys, and I know that with Parkinson's it's hard to write, so please do it as couples if you need or want. But I'd like you to take a moment to jot down 3 things that have gone well for you today. And since we're in the morning, what about yesterday? Think about yesterday and today and jot 3 things down on your handout or on a piece of paper, 3 things that went well. Go, and I'll call you back in a minute. Okay, begin to bring it together. Okay, bring it all back up here now. Probably didn't have time to finish, but you can talk some more about this again at lunch. I'll tell you what I'm seeing. I heard some giggles. I heard a clap. I'm seeing smiles. How do you feel after doing this? Good. Does anybody want to share or really great what went well? Anyone brave enough in a big group? Yes. Yes, I woke up. How many of you had that on your list? Yes, what's yours?
My husband said to me that he was in love with his wife.
Oh, now what? You may not have heard that. She said her husband said to her he's in love with his wife. Oh. You go home with brownie points today. Anybody else? Yes.
Spoke to the grandchildren.
You spoke to the grandchildren. That's always enough. Yes.
I'm happy to be here with all my support group family.
Yeah, you've got a support group family, and it's really wonderful to be here with them. Anybody else? Yes.
But for my little dogs.
Your dogs. Yes. How many of you have pets you love? Yeah, they are a joy. They're going to be on your list. Anybody else? Okay, one more. This last one.
Walked the dog the first thing this morning, then the second thing came back, woke up late, and had to care for her because Friday a week ago she broke her arm in 2 places.
So you were able to care for her, and she's here today?
She's not here.
She's not here today. Okay. But you are. And that's a real positive. All right. So that's what it's all about. And you've got places on your sheet to do 2 more days. And I encourage you to do like the next 2 days just to get into practicing it. What this does then, after you do it for a while, you'll begin to start looking for the positives during the day. Because you know you're going to be listing them that night. And then you're going to see them. And instead of Velcro, you're going to let them stick. Because I want you to savor them. When you see a positive, at the very time you see it, savor it. Milk it for all it's got. And then you get it to stick a little bit more. Because remember, we're trying to get 3 to 1. We got to really hang on to the ones that we get, even if they're little. Quote on this section, to wrap up this section, is from Ben Franklin. Happiness consists more in the small pleasures that occur every day than in great pieces of good fortune that happen but seldom. So enjoy the every little day positives that you have. Moving on to the E. Lots of ways to get engaged and have engagement in your life, but one is to follow your passions, to really take time for your passions. Now, what are your passions? Passions are things that you like to do or love to do, things that you value, and things that you put time into. However, when we're dealing with Parkinson's, what happens? We don't have the time. Sometimes we don't have the energy to do these things. So I want to reinforce how important they are and get you to find some time for them. And the research shows that doing your positive activity increases your positive effect. It makes you feel better. And then there's a study by Valerand with seniors that found when seniors were doing their passionate activity, their life satisfaction, their vitality, their meaning in life all improved, and they decreased their anxiety and depression. So if you're not doing your passion, you're going to be missing out on those wonderful capacities. So begin to think about your passion, and keep your sheet out there, and you can jot them down. I'm not going to give you time to do it, but as I go through ideas, jot down what your passion is. You saw me hiking. I love outdoor activities. I like activity in general. So this one, exercise, this is mine. This is one I really love. It was my career, and it's something I just love to do. In fact, I was telling someone I'm from Maine, and I'm really looking forward to the snow because I cross-country ski. So I'm one of the few ones that like the snow. But think about what your passionate activity is. It might be that you just love watching sports. It might be that you like to walk your dog that already came out today. Play golf, whatever it is you like. Maybe your passionate activity is music. Do you sing? Do you play an instrument? The bottom right is my mom playing her viola. That's what got her through my dad's cancer. That's what gives her enjoyment. She's 84 and moving through the senior part of her life. Maybe you like to listen to music. I had in one talk I gave in San Diego of Parkinson's, there was a guy who had been a commercial pilot. And so when I asked about what was his passionate activity, he said, I love to fly. But I knew watching his Parkinson's, I sure was hoping he wasn't piloting an airplane. And I thought, gosh, how's he going to do his passion? He can't fly. Well, he came up with another one. He said, you know what? But my wife and I love classical music. And that's my passion now. Then I had another guy, this was a Parkinson's group in Florida, who played a steel guitar, and I'm not sure I've really seen a steel guitar, I'm sorry to say. But he explained it, he uses his feet, he uses his hands, and he sang. Well, he could no longer do the feet part, he was still able to do the hand part. But he kept doing his passion activity, even though he had to modify it. So even if you have to modify your passion, see if you can do it. So music. Then there's all the hobbies, quilting, sewing, crocheting, knitting, going out and staring at the stars, doing your genealogy. Maybe it's just getting with friends. Maybe it's travel and adventures. We're going to talk about adventures later. Maybe it's playing bridge. What are your passions? And now the trick is, how are you going to make time for them? Because they are so important in your life. So I want you to go home and think about that. I've got to put those passions back into my life if they've been dropped off. And at least a little bit. You might not be able to do it like you used to be able to do it. Those of you who have Parkinson's who were artists, you might think, oh gosh, I can't do it anymore. I would say get a little bit creative. Use your Parkinson's to create a whole new style of art. But don't let go of your passions. They're too important. Quote from Oprah, passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. So think about what your passions are. That's the engagement part, one of the pieces of engagement. Now relationships. Do you think relationships are important? Yeah, that's why you're here with the group, right? Because they really help. So let's think about how we can connect with others, because in fact the studies are there. This is probably the most important thing you can do. And so I want to encourage all of you, if you're not in one of the Parkinson's support groups, this is the day to find out where they are and get engaged, or get engaged in your church groups or other kinds of community activities where you can, in your synagogues, whatever, where you can connect with others. It's vitally important. Diner and Chan went out to look at, they said, if we look at all the happiness studies and we look at the top 10%, boy, the top 10% of the happiest of the happy, we should really figure out what the real ingredient is there. So they looked at all the studies. they couldn't find anything that was consistent between all these happy people except one thing: the strength of their social connections. That was what they all had in common. And then there was a study by Valiant and colleagues. This is a study over 70 years. Another study at Harvard of these guys were sophomores in 1938 to 1942. Harvard sophomores. They watched them over 7 decades, and they looked to see who was successful, who wasn't, what happened with their families and their life. And they found that those that had the strong social connections were the ones that had better happiness and success. In fact, the happy people, the strong social connection people, were the ones who had double the salary of the ones who had no or few social connections. So it really is important. Now, why? Well, it seems like when we're in groups like this, you're here today, this is a great social connection. When we're here, as we're looking into people's eyes and talking to people, our bodies are producing a hormone. And that hormone brings us pleasure. It allows us to concentrate and focus. That hormone also decreases our anxiety. So can you see why it's so helpful to be with other people? It's huge. So think about ways you can increase your social connections. I want to share one story here, another Parkinson's group that I spoke at. This woman said that she and her husband and 2 other couples would have dinner once a week together, and it was a social event that she just cherished. But her husband's Parkinson's had progressed where she couldn't go out anymore. It just was too hard to take him out. So what she did was she got pizza or Subway sandwiches. She got the plastic plates, the plastic cups and flatware, everything. So easy cleanup, and she brought them to her house. So every Monday night, she brought those 2 couples to be with her, and that was her way to keep the connection going. So don't think that you can't be connected. You can. There are a lot of ways to do that. And another thing is to be really connected to your loved one, because what happens, the more the disease progresses, the more we're dealing with the disease and we're not being, connected as a parent and a child, or as a husband and a wife, or as friends, because there's too much around the disease and everything going with it. So you want to make sure to stay connected with your loved one. So things that you can do there are to just really focus with each other. Have some time that's just you time together. Whether it's a morning coffee at the local coffee shop, or it's something that you do just you 2 together, so you can just have time together. The other thing that the researcher Jane Dutton said to do is to goof off. So definitely find time to have fun. That's the key. So take a look at your handout. I want you to look at the 4 squares that are under focus on social connections. And take a moment just to think how you might take one of those squares. So either more time with your loved one, who might you contact from the past, social media. How many of you are on Facebook? Raise your hand. Hi, be proud. Okay, down. How many of you are not on Facebook, but have the internet at home? All right, I'm talking to you guys. I want you to have your grandkid, your nephew, your niece, somebody come in and set you up on Facebook, because that's where all those grandkids and nieces and nephews are posting what's going on in their life. All you have to do, I'm telling you, once they set it up, all you have to do is open it up and read it. You don't have to respond. You don't have to do anything. As long as they set you up and put all your family and friends up there, you only have to open and read it. And you can keep track of people. I've been able to connect with people that I knew from college, from high school. So it can also be fun for that too. But even with your connection with your family. So see if you might want to do that. Or maybe you might want to find a new social connection. That new social connection might be joining a new group, might be getting involved in taking some kind of activity, instruction at the local community center, joining the choir, whatever it takes to get involved in a new group. So I just want you to think about what that is, but I want to keep moving on because we got lots I want to share that I think are really important. So you got some ideas on that? How you're going to reconnect socially? Okay. I'm giving you a quote from my late husband, Charles. The essence of life is relationships. To me, that's what it's all about. All right, now let's move on to meaning, one of my favorite parts, because I think it's hard when you're in the midst of this stuff to take the bigger look. Where is the meaning in my life? I think we can find meaning in the gifts that our struggles bring. And in my life, I've realized that I get to deeper level of relationships. I get to greater growth personally when I go through a struggle. Now you see up here, I've got the Twin Towers in New York. We all remember 9/11. And we remember seeing those planes hit the towers and watching them just crumble. And we were horrified. How could anyone do this? What's going on? We were scared. I lived in Boston at the time, worked in Boston at the time. That's where the planes took off of. We didn't know what was going on. We were scared to death. It was horrible, and about 3,000 people died that day. The worst terrorism since Pearl Harbor, they say. How many of you, though, think about that time and you went home? Did you feel closer with your family? What about when you went to your faith groups? You feel closer as a community? I don't know about down here, but in Boston, flags were going up over the overpasses. Was that happening here too? We were feeling closer as a nation. I'd like to say we were still there, but we're not. But I drove down the Massachusetts Turnpike to work every day, and you may have heard that Bostonian drivers are pretty bad, and they deserve that reputation. But after 9/11, everybody was nice. Even the taxi drivers. When you had to pull over, they, instead of giving you the finger or yelling at you or honking at you, they say, "Come on over." It was really, you could feel it, you could touch it, it was palpable. That's the gift of 9/11. All of those are the gift of 9/11. Well, you might say, that's kind of silly. 3,000 people died. So the gifts don't balance out the bad. But the gifts are what can help us, buoy us up through the bad. It's not a one-on-one, but it gets you through. So let's think about gifts. We're going to take some time to jot these down and talk about them. For Charles, I think he might say his gift is that he got closer to his two younger brothers. They were very close growing up, but Charles' second wife, Charles' first wife, they separated and divorced, and that was not acceptable in his family. And so Charles, when we got married, didn't even invite his parents and his family to come. He didn't think they would want to. Well, we worked hard to build that relationship, but it was Charles's disease that really crystallized it. And he got so close to those two younger brothers. I've got a lot of stories about it, but it was beautiful to see. This is Patty and Rhonda. These are my gifts from dealing with the disease that I had to deal with. Patty's husband had the same disease as Charles and Rhonda's mother. And we started a support group. And they have become, I didn't know them before this disease, and we keep saying the disease is what brought us together. And Patty and Rhonda, I've moved up to Maine, they're still in the Boston area, but we're the very closest of friends. We get together every 6 months or so, we travel together. I really value the relationship I have with them. Would I rather have Charles back and never had the opportunity to meet Patty and Rhonda? Sure, I would have done that. I didn't have that choice, though. So what I can do now, though, is at least celebrate the wonderful friendship I have with these two great women and really value that as a gift from Charles's disease. Also have the gift that Charles wrote his book, Paradoxes of Leadership. He was a phenomenal leader, speaking about this all over the world. He never slowed down to write his book. The disease slowed him down. And we said, it's now or never. And we got his book written, and that's his legacy. And because he wrote his book, I said, ooh, maybe I could write one. I never wanted to write a book. It was not on my to-do list and my bucket list, but I did, and I knew I could because of Charles. So I want you to think about the gifts that you have from dealing with this disease. And take the time now on the back side of your handout. I want you, and work with your loved one so that you can do it as partners if you want, or you can do it individual. Jot down what you see as the gifts from having Parkinson's in your life and family. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that. And those of you that aren't dealing with Parkinson's, think about gifts in your life when you've gone through a struggle. What are some gifts that you have? Good. Again, at lunchtime you can do some more of this if you didn't finish talking, but does anybody want to share some of their gifts? Does anyone feel brave enough to share a gift you've had from this disease? Yes. Better parking spots. All right. That's looking at the positive, absolutely. Any other gifts? Anyone else want to share? Yes. Huge. I couldn't have said it better. It makes you realize what's important in life, right? What other gifts? Yes. Retire early. Yes. Yes, enjoy the moment. The moments become more precious, don't they? What's another gift you've gotten? Yes. You make new friends everywhere. Yes, because you're able to communicate. They want to help you. Charles used to say, boy, people are so friendly because they would be helping him so much. Anybody else? Yes. I didn't hear that. Say it again. Opportunity to show my granddaughter how people face life. What a beautiful life lesson this is when you show love in the midst of a disease. And then there's another one here.
It opened up new opportunities for new adventures and life.
It opened up new opportunities for new adventures in life. I was speaking to, it reminds me of an ALS group that I spoke to, and there was a couple in there, they were the mother and the dad of their son who had died really the month before. They told me that over the 5 years of their son's ALS, that's Lou Gehrig's disease, that they took him on 20 cruises. And every time they went on a cruise, they brought an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a friend. Think of the relationship building he was having with that. So definitely. Whoa, doesn't this just get to your heart? So continue to think about these gifts. That's what buoys you up. Sure, everything stinks, when you look at the day-to-day. But you got the special moments, you got the adventures, you've got the wonderful people that you deal with. These are the gifts that make it all worthwhile. You all may have heard of Viktor Frankl, from an Auschwitz survivor, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. I encourage everybody in here to read it. Very short, wonderful book. It's on your list. No, yeah, it is on your list. I got my book list there for you. Even in Auschwitz, he said you can find meaning. And here's one of the most powerful quotes I've seen on meaning. Life holds a potential meaning under any conditions, even the most miserable ones. He could find meaning in Auschwitz. We can find meaning in Parkinson's. Now, I want to finish with this inspirational story of Charles. We just got 5 minutes here for accomplishments. Positive accomplishments is the last in the PERMA list. We want to have some goals and accomplishments. So let me share the story of Charles in hopes that it'll inspire all of you in the goals that you have. When Charles was still well, he determined that he was going to start running every single day. And this was a concept from Stephen Covey, to have a daily personal victory. So even if other things started to fall apart, you'd have one thing that you were in control of, that you did, that was your victory for the day. And for Charles, it was going to run. Well, you know, anytime you make a goal like that, it's going to get tested, right? Going to be some obstacles in the way. So think about when you make a goal, how am I going to overcome those obstacles? So what happened to Charles? Before he got the disease, he traveled one time and he forgot his running shoes. Well, for most of us, that'd be a great, oh gosh, I don't have to run today. I don't have my shoes. Not Charles, because he was going to run every single day. See, you can't miss one and make that goal. So he ran 3 miles in his street shoes. Then the disease started to progress. And he was running one day, came back, it was actually an evening, came back, he had tripped on a stump of something. And you know what it's like when you fall, when you've got a movement disorder. This is the aftermath. A few months later, you can still see the scars on his face as he had abrasions from that fall. When that happened the second time, we realized, oops, Charles, no more running on your own on the street. Let's go try the high school track. There's nothing to trip on. So we went up to the high school track and continued to run for a period of time until, as you know how these diseases go, he would get off balance and he would start to fall. All right, we had to regroup. So we said, all right, he was slowing down so I could start running with him. I said, okay, you can only run if I hold your arm. And then I would recruit, this is my brother-in-law, I recruit somebody whenever I could. So we ran holding Charles's arm and continued to do that until his disease. Now, with Parkinson's, you tend to come this way as the disease progresses. With Charles's disease, he got stiff and got this way. And so here I am, we're running along with someone who's not good balance and center of gravity's backwards. I finally said to him, Charles, I hate to say this, but I think we're going to need to switch to walking. Is that okay? And he agreed. And so we continued walking. This is just in the home, but we'd walk around the outside until he got so stiff, and I just realized we just can't do it. So he had 2 hospital stays in 1 month, and everything was falling apart. He was going downhill quick, and I said, I got to give it up. But Charles had accumulated 1,675 consecutive days of running or walking, and I know it because he kept track of it in his time system. Wow, what an effort of overcoming obstacles and sticking with your goals. So that's the message I want to leave with you in regard to your goals. You've got a sheet here when you go home to think about the goal you want to accomplish, figure out what the obstacles are, figure those out in advance so that you can overcome them. Paul J. Meyer was a salesman, age of 28, millionaire. And his quote is, 90% of those who fail were not actually defeated. They simply quit. So don't quit. Stick with your goals. I don't have time for questions, but I want you to think about what technique you're going to use when you go home, so you go home doing something different. And I want to leave you with this last quote. This is a quote from Bob Fulton, who's here with Charles. Bob was the founder of the company that Charles worked for. Charles wouldn't tell people for about a year that he had a disease, which many of you with Parkinson's can relate to, but people were starting to figure it out, and so he finally decided to be open with it, and he'd take people to lunch or dinner. And I remember him coming home from taking Bob to dinner, And he said, Janet, I have to tell you what Bob told me tonight. Bob said, Charles, I hope this disease makes you better, not bitter. And that's what I hope for your experience, that you bring positivity in to let this experience make you all better, not bitter. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful conference. I'll be here the rest of the day.